All right, you have made it to week number 2. So you now understand our course policies and the grading, and you've also experienced how to put something in the Dropbox, and this will become handy because each module you'll have Dropbox activities when we get into the speeches. You'll have to put things in the Dropbox like your outlines and your research, and so this is a handy skill to have. And then of course you've experienced the discussion board and you know how to make your post with an image and also how to make those 2 required replies to your classmates. And so the discussion boards going forward will be more focused on the communication topics, but even just introducing yourself and meeting your classmates is part of communication, part that we're going to even talk about when we get to chapter 3. So let's talk about chapter 3. We're going to start our week by reading chapter 3 and then taking the quiz. Chapter 3 is on perception. And so there's 2 ways that we can look at perception. We can talk about our perception of others and how we view them. And this goes really well right after chapter 2 because we talked about culture. You know, how does culture shape our perception of others and how we've been raised? And so really great information in this chapter about awareness. And this piggybacks really well on to our discussion of stereotyping from chapter 2. And then the second way, after we examine our perception of others, then let's also talk about our perception of ourself and how that is created and how those significant others that helped bring us up and our society and our culture shape even our perception of ourself. We're going to look at the Johari window, which I find super fascinating, and how, you know, parts of my perception of myself are hidden to me, but known to others. And then parts are hidden to everyone. And it's just really neat because our perception of ourself and even ourself can evolve too. And so this chapter is really neat. The chapter ends by looking at face work and how we maintain our desired self. And so I think you'll find this chapter really great. Then of course, you're going to move on into chapters 4 and 5, and we kind of group those together, and you'll see why when you get into it. Chapter 4 is dialogic and communication, and how can we truly encourage others to engage with us in a dialogue? What can we do to make that happen? What do we need to avoid doing to stop dialogic communication, and also look at the ethical considerations of dialogic communication? And then chapter 5 is all about use of language. And a lot of the things that you read about in chapter 5 will seem familiar to you because we'll be looking at the structure of language, and that'll tie back into some of your English and your composition courses. And you'll notice those language terms, alliteration and symbolic. And so that'll be really neat for you. And speaking of symbols, so we'll talk also about how language uses signs to represent things in an abstract manner so that we can have these dialogic conversations. We can have shared meaning based on the use of signs. And then of course, I will be linking the TED Talk videos that apply to these chapters also in our course. These TED Talks are not required reading or viewing for you, but they are supplemental, but I think they will enhance your understanding of the course concepts. And of course, who doesn't love a good TED Talk? So be sure to check those out as you have time. When you finish reading chapter 4 and chapter 5, go ahead and take those quizzes, and then you'll be ready to move on to chapter 6 and week 3. So great job this week, chapters 3, 4, and 5 for week number 2.